I'm 76 years old, and it took me this long to understand why my children stopped calling. It wasn't sudden. There was no fight, no dramatic goodbye, just longer gaps between the phone ringing. Birthdays reduced to brief messages, holidays rearranged until they no longer included me. For a long time, I told myself they were busy. That's what I said to my friends at the diner. Kids have their own lives, I'd shrug. I even said it like I was proud of them. But pride and truth aren't always the same thing. I'm not telling you this because I expect sympathy. At my age, sympathy doesn't change much. I'm telling you because when you get to be 6, you start running out of chances to be honest. And there are things I should have understood decades ago. These days, the house is quiet in a way I used to think I wanted. No toys on the floor, no slammed doors, no arguments drifting down the hallway, just the refrigerator humming and the clock on the wall reminding me that time keeps moving whether anyone calls or not. I sit at the kitchen table most mornings with a cup of coffee and my phone beside me, not because I expect it to ring, just because I remember when it used to. When I was younger, late 20s, early 30s, I believed something very simple. I believed that being a good father meant providing. That was the word my own father used, provide. He worked at a factory for 38 years. Came home tired, hands smelling like oil and metal. He didn't talk much, but the bills were paid. There was food on the table. We never went without. That was love, as far as he knew. So when I got my first steady job in sales, I carried that same definition with me. I worked hard, harder than I probably needed to. I liked the feeling of being depended on, of being the one who kept everything standing. My wife, Ellen, used to say, "You don't have to stay so late." And I'd answer, "It's just for a few years. Once we're comfortable, I'll slow down." There's a dangerous comfort in that sentence, just for a few years. Our son was born when I was 31. I remember holding him in the hospital room, terrified I'd drop him. So small, so loud, I promised him things silently. I'd give you everything I didn't have. I'd make sure you never struggle. When our daughter came 3 years later, I made the same promise again, and I meant it. That's the part that still stings. I wasn't careless. I wasn't cruel. I was certain I was doing the right thing. I missed my son's first school play because a client was flying in from Chicago. It felt important. I told him I'd make it up to him. He said, "It's okay, Dad." He was 7, I believed him. I missed a few soccer games after that. Then a parent-teacher conference. Then a Saturday trip to the park because I was exhausted and needed to catch up on work. Ellen stopped asking me to come to everything. She'd just tell me how it went. "They did great," she'd say, and I'd nod, half listening, already thinking about Monday. At the time, it all felt temporary. Childhood seemed long. There would be recitals and games and weekends for years. Plenty of chances. I remember one evening when my daughter knocked on my office door at home. I had papers spread out across the desk. "Can you help me with my project?" she asked. "Give me 10 minutes, I said. 10 minutes turned into an hour. When I finally walked into the kitchen, she was asleep at the table, crayons scattered around her. I carried her to bed, kissed her forehead, told myself I'd be more available tomorrow. Tomorrow came and went like that for a long time. We took vacations, of course. I'm not saying I was never there. We went to the beach some summers. I taught my son how to ride a bike. I braided my daughter's hair once, clumsily, and we laughed. But I was always slightly somewhere else, half present, checking my watch, thinking about emails, planning the next move. I thought they would understand someday that when they were adults, they'd look back and see the bigger picture. They'd know why I work so much. Children don't see the bigger picture. They see who shows up. When my son was teen, he stopped telling me about school altogether. I didn't notice right away. Ellen did. "He doesn't talk to you much anymore," she said gently. "He's a teenager," I replied. "They're like that." It was easier to believe that. My daughter used to sit next to me on the couch when she was little. By the time she was in high school, she'd go to her room instead. Headphones on, door closed. I told myself that was normal too. It's amazing what you can explain away when you're not ready to look closely. Ellen and I grew quieter with each other as well, not angry, just distant. We ran the household like a small company, efficient, functional. One night, after the kids had gone to bed, she said, "I feel like I'm raising them alone." I felt defensive immediately. "That's not fair," I said. "I'm doing this for all of you." She didn't argue. She just nodded in that tired way she had. I mistook her silence for agreement. Years passed like that. Promotions came. Bigger house, nicer car, college funds secured. I remember the day we dropped our son off at college. He hugged his mother for a long time. When he hugged me, it was brief, polite. "Thanks, Dad," he said. "For what?" I asked. "For everything." I heard gratitude. I didn't hear distance. Our daughter left 2 years later. The house felt strange without them. I thought that once things slowed down at work, I'd reconnect. We'd have adult conversations, dinners, maybe trips together. Instead, the calls became practical. "Hi, Dad. Just letting you know I got the internship." "Hey, can you send me that insurance information?" We spoke, but we didn't talk. Ellen got sick when I was 8. Nothing dramatic at first, just fatigue, tests, more tests. I went to every appointment then, sat in every waiting room, held her hand. I kept thinking I should have done this sooner. Not the hospital part, the sitting, the being there without looking at the clock. She passed away 2 years later. At the funeral, both of our children stood beside me. They were kind, responsible. They handled arrangements, greeted relatives, made sure I ate something. I remember watching them from across the room and realizing they were capable adults. People I didn't fully know. After the funeral, they went back to their lives. They called once a week at first, then once every couple of weeks. Then sometimes a month would pass. I'd consider calling them myself, but I didn't want to intrude. I told myself they needed space, that I had raised independent children. The truth settled in slowly. One evening, about 3 years after Ellen died, I found an old box of drawings in the attic. Crayon pictures, stick figures labeled Dad and me. In most of them, I was drawn with a briefcase. That's when it finally came together. I had been present as a provider, not as a person. They didn't stop calling because they were ungrateful. They stopped because we never built the habit of talking about anything deeper than schedules and responsibilities. You can't suddenly create intimacy at 70 if you never practiced it at 40. I tried awkwardly to change it. I called my son one night and asked about his childhood. He seemed surprised. "It was fine, Dad," he said. "You worked a lot." There was no anger in his voice. That almost made it harder. I apologized once, not dramatically, just said, "I wish I'd been around more." He paused for a moment. "I know you did your best," he said. That sentence should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like a closed door. Doing your best doesn't erase absence. My daughter visits sometimes. She lives a few hours away. We sit at the same kitchen table. She tells me about her work, her friends. There's a kindness in her tone, but there's a carefulness too, like we're still learning each other. When she leaves, the quiet returns quickly. At 6, I finally understand that love isn't measured in effort alone, it's measured in attention. I gave them security, I gave them education, I gave them a stable home. But I didn't always give them myself. And children grow up learning what to expect. If they learn that their father is busy, that he's tired, that he's focused elsewhere, they adjust. They stop reaching as often. They stop knocking on the office door. Eventually, they stop calling. I don't blame them anymore. For a while, I did. I'd sit here and think, after everything I did for them, but that sentence always felt incomplete. After everything I did, except sit longer, except listen without glancing at a watch, except say, work can wait. There are things you can fix in life. Careers can change. Houses can be sold. Money can be earned back. Time with your children when they are young only moves one way. If you miss enough small moments, you don't notice the distance forming. It's like a crack in a wall, thin at first, easy to ignore, then one day you see daylight through it. I still hope the phone rings more often. I won't pretend I don't, but I also understand now that relationships aren't owed, they're built. Slowly, repeatedly. If you're listening to me and you still have children who knock on your door or ask for help with a project or want you at a game, I am not going to tell you what you must do. I'll just say this. There will always be another email, another shift, another opportunity to prove yourself to people who won't remember your name in 10 years. There will not always be a 7-year-old waiting on a stage, scanning the audience for your face. I thought I had more time. That's the simplest truth. More time to slow down, more time to connect, more time to repair what felt slightly off. Time is generous when you're young. It feels endless. It isn't. These days, I try to answer the phone on the first ring. Even if it's just a telemarketer, the sound still startles me. When my children do call, I listen carefully. I don't rush the conversation. I ask questions and let the silence sit if it needs to. We're building something now, slowly. It's not what it could have been, but it's something. I don't expect grand gestures from them. I don't expect weekly visits or long emotional talks. I just hope that when I'm gone, they remember that I finally understood. If this story feels familiar to you in any direction, I hope you sit with it quietly. That's all. I don't have many years left. None of us know the number, but at 76, you start to feel the narrowing. I spend my mornings at this table, coffee cooling beside me, sunlight coming through the same window it always has. I used to think success would echo louder than anything else. In the end, it doesn't. What echoes is laughter you barely heard because you were in the next room working. What echoes is a small voice saying, "Can you help me?" And your own voice replying, "In a minute." At 76, I finally understand why my children stopped calling. And I understand that they didn't stop all at once. I did first.